Are we live, Alice?
Welcome to Conference of the Movements, com26v.com. Today is the creating a blueprint for the future of humanity. We are here with myself, David Kam. I'm one of the three peacemakers with Sherry Lewis and Meswin Zaid. And also we have Gail from the Creators 2030. Gail?
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Gail Davis Carter, and I am of the Creators 2030 UN SDGs Arts and Youth Initiative. I'm also United Nations representative with ECOSOC. And so I'm here with David, and we're building the blueprint together. We are bringing in the climate, the women, and the youth part of the blueprint, and some other parts of it with the artists and the creativity part of the blueprint as well. So we look forward to introducing you now to Miss Miranda Clendenning. I hope I've said that correctly, Miss Clendenning. And she is going to introduce our esteemed guest. Thank you very much, and thank you, David, for bringing this together.
Oh, thank you so much, Gail and David. It's such a blessing and an honor to be here. I am Director of Operations and Development for the Center for Reinventing the Planet with David Gershon. And we're so excited. I've known David Kam and Gail throughout UN summits over the last years, but an honor to be bringing this conversation with all of us together. And it's my honor to introduce David Gershon and his plan, grand strategy to actually reinvent the planet, which I work with him on every day, which is a blessing in my life. And it is so real, the amount of impact that is being created and this adventure that we're on. Our species has a teachable moment and opportunity to do something it has never done before, to reinvent the planet. The question is, how do we seize this moment? We need a grand strategy capable of rising to the occasion. And if we wish better results than we've gotten in the past, we need to change the way we think about change. Over the past 5 years, a grand strategy has evolved called Reinventing the Planet. It was architected by one of the world's foremost experts in social change, David Gershon, who has been successfully leading large system transformation for 4 decades. This grand strategy addresses the major challenges facing humanity, but in a way that simultaneously accelerates the evolution of our species. It is also designed in a unitive manner to bring people together, transforming us and them into a universal we. It is so effective, it has spawned a movement of great hope for our world. The audacity of this vision and the enormity of change it is creating and will create has attracted the extraordinary team of people aligned in heart, mind, and spirit in service to greater good. If an endeavor of this magnitude resonates with you, come to this talk and exploration with us, and there will be a question and answer session at the end, so you can put your questions in the chat and we'll discuss all of them with you. Excited about this adventure. David?
Miranda, thank you. So my friends, welcome. So let me give you a little overview of what we're about to experience. And I wonder if the screen is changed so that I'm showing here. I'm not seeing myself, so maybe we have to share the screen differently. I don't know.
You're on there.
Am I on there? Okay. So this is a visionary conference. I mean, I've never been in a conference where the theme was a blueprint for humanity's future. So that's what we're trying to create, is a blueprint for humanity's future. And George Bernard Shaw has this beautiful quote. He says, some see things as they are and ask why. Others dream things that never were and ask why not. 4 qualities are needed to fully embody this visionary spirit. I call them the 4 A's. The first is agency. Agency being the belief that anything is possible. The I am and I can spirit. The willingness to fully step into our power. The willingness to say yes. to whatever it is that is necessary for our lives and humanity's future, collective lives of humanity. The second is audacity. Audacity is a boldness of spirit. It is a willingness to really dream the impossible, dream as it is often called. It's the willingness to say, literally, anything is possible. We need audacity. Abundance is the third A. And abundance is about a belief in infinite possibility, the resources, the intelligence, the speed of change, the will for change, everything that's required to bring about the kind of change that a new blueprint for humanity will demand and require. And the fourth is alchemy. Alchemy meaning we can't do this individually. No single organization, no single initiative is going to succeed. We have to bring them all together in a synergistic way. This is where the magic comes in, where the us comes in, where the we comes in. So our grand strategy to reinvent the planet serves up a heaping portion of why not. And I'm going to share with you a short animated film that introduces you to the plan, and that film will invite you to go on a journey. It will invite you to open up what I call your why not lens, and to allow into your consciousness the possibility that a comprehensive strategy for humanity's future, a blueprint for humanity's future exists that can enable bold and rapid transformative change for our species. And then after I share with you this video, I'll unpack this in a talk that moves you through the different dimensions of the plan and the strategy. So with that said, I will share my screen. Let me get this thing teed up, and then I'll share my screen. So bear with me. Okay, I think we're good.
Unless we rapidly change our trajectory as a species, our civilization will unravel. The question is, how do we change? There are many dedicated and heroic changemakers pouring their hearts and souls into trying to change the world, but they struggle to break through. What if the problem was not the world's unwillingness to change, but the approaches we use to bring about change? What if how we thought about social change and what people were capable of achieving was the problem? If we wish to change the world, we need to first change the way we think about change. The mindset for a new approach is best described in the provocative Apple ad, "Here's to the crazy ones." They see things differently, are not fond of rules, and have no respect for the status quo. While some may think them as crazy, the ones crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. These are 3 questions the crazy ones must ask if we want to change the world. How do we reinvent social change? How do we reinvent social activism? How do we reinvent the planet? From a social change point of view, the world is a composite of many social systems. The complexity and discord in the world today have placed multiple stresses on these systems, causing them to become unstable and break down. When a social system is not tethered to something that keeps it in place, it can not only break down, it can also break through and evolve to a higher level of performance and social value. In systems theory, this is called second-order change, and in this context, transformative social change. The alternative is first-order change or incremental social change. These 2 approaches to social change can be called social change 1.0 and social change 2.0. 1.0 consists of the traditional social change tools of passing laws, financial incentives, information campaigns, and social protest. Although necessary, it is insufficient in a world that requires fundamental transformation. So if we can't achieve the transformative social change needed on our planet through forcing people to change, paying them to change, telling them to change, or demanding they change, what is left? Empowering people to want to change. What empowers people to change is a compelling vision of a better life and the tools to achieve it. And what empowers the crazy ones is the ability to design second-order change solutions that empower lots of people to change. This combination provides the agency necessary for social change 2.0 to flourish. Over the past 40 years, David Gershon, one of the world's leading experts in empowerment and social change, has created 5 second-order change solutions that address the mission-critical issues required for humanity's viability. Each is built around a lever capable of changing the game around that issue. He has also written the definitive book on second-order change, Social Change 2.0. This book empowers the crazy ones with the 5 social change superpowers needed to reinvent the planet. How to empower, transform, innovate, unify, and mobilize. What happens when we integrate these 5 second-order change solutions and 5 social change 2.0 superpowers is an alchemical reaction that changes the game of change. And what emerges is a holistic plan to reinvent the planet. 1. Climate Goal and Strategy, Cool Block Program. By 2030, empower cities around the world and their citizens with the agency and second-order change knowledge to transform the climate paralysis into carbon-neutral cities and breakthrough solutions. 2. Development Goal and Strategy, Imagine Program. By 2030, empower women in the developing world with the agency and second-order change knowledge to transform the cycle of poverty into thriving lives and communities. 3. Peace Goal and Strategy, Peace on Earth by 2030 Game. By 2030, empower a global bottom-up movement of peacemakers with the agency and second-order change knowledge to transform the paradigm of war into peace on Earth. 4. Knowledge Goal and Strategy, Empowerment Institute Center for Reinventing the Planet. By 2030, empower the world's changemakers with the agency and second-order change knowledge to transform the world's insoluble problems into breathtaking opportunities that reinvent the planet. 5. Money Goal and Strategy, Reinventing the Planet Fund. By 2030, empower the world's visionary philanthropists with the agency and second-order change knowledge to transform the trillions of dollars of social change investments into second-order change solutions that reinvent the planet. We find ourselves at a moment in time when the environmental and social stresses are so pronounced that they have become catalysts to accelerate human evolution. In evolutionary biology, this is called punctuated equilibrium, a time when rapid and quantum change suddenly becomes possible. In September 2015, the ambitious UN Sustainable Development Goals for 2030 were launched. The world is now searching for the means to implement the magnitude and speed of transformative social change these goals demand. This plan to reinvent the planet provides humanity with the means. But it goes beyond that. It allows us to realize our fullest potential as a human species, live in harmony with each other and the Earth, and regain control of our destiny, enabling us to experience hope, passion, and excitement about the future. Please join us for the greatest adventure of our time, reinventing the planet.
So, my friends, let me stop sharing for a moment, and then I will talk a little bit about how to go from here, where to go from here. So that lays out the big picture. This is where we are, where we need to go. And what I want to do now is share some slides that take us on the journey and unpack the plan in some detail so that we can literally see the blueprint come alive. So I will share my screen again. Let's see if I have this right. I do. And let me now just walk you on this path of reinvention. Okay. You ready to go on a ride called A Grand Strategy to Reinvent the Planet? Okay, I think that's a yes. So let me start with what we call the Reinventing the Planet code. So what I have discovered is that there are what we call evolutionary drivers. These are the problems that humanity is facing that, if we resolve, effectively drive evolution itself. So development is moving from poverty to a developmental path that accelerates human evolution. Accelerates is the operative word, in a timely manner. So we don't stay in the development space forever. A lot of the SDGs live in this space. So how do we accelerate the developmental process? So we've built a program called Imagine, which I'll describe in a few minutes, that has significantly accelerated human evolution across Africa, India, and the Middle East. So the first one is this process of accelerating human evolution. So this is the individual's ability to evolve rapidly and effectively as a species, as an individual of the species. The second one is peace, which comes out of the need to transform the paradigm of war. And the goal is, how do we accelerate human to human evolution? And the accelerator is our game called Peace on Earth by 2030. And as you see here, we're asking bold questions. And by the way, the Imagine goal is by 2030 to have implemented this across the world and significantly accelerated the development in the developing world. The third is climate, which is human to earth evolution, which is our Cool Block and Cool Planet initiative, which is designed to create carbon neutral cities and again, transform the trajectory of the climate sort of destabilization process towards stabilization in a timely manner. So each of these is asking big questions and have ambitious goals and strategies that are demonstrating success in accelerating the evolutionary process around these issues. The fourth one, as described in the video, is knowledge, which is building second order change capacity across the NGO sector, across the business sector, all government sector, all sectors that are trying to create transformative social change, second order change. How do we bring the knowledge into the system that can enable that kind of change? So we call that the Center for Reinventing the Planet, which will build capacity across the planet. The fifth is what we call the money driver. So we need financial resources. And here we are looking for civilizational evolution, because when you have the knowledge and you have the financial resources and you have these other drivers, you can significantly speed up the evolutionary process. And here we're putting $1 billion Reinventing the Planet fund together. So this is the code. When we think blueprint, we need to think, where are the levers? Where are the drivers that can get the most results, the least amount of effort, and that have the most potential to scale in the shortest period of time? So that's what this code is. And I've been working on this for 40 years. Unbeknownst to myself, it came together about 5 years ago into a plan. And all of a sudden, it just showed up that there was coherence and that we had all the fundamental drivers. And then the goal was to put it into a coherent format, which is now this Reinventing the Planet plan, which I will systematically unpack. So let me start where we have to begin to keep the planet viable, which is the climate vision. If we don't get this one right, we don't get to have a planet to evolve on. We don't get to have sustainable development goals to be achieved, because we don't have a viable life support system. So we need to fundamentally change the trajectory humanity is on vis-a-vis its relation to climate. So our goal is to empower cities and their citizens through a whole system climate solution to create carbon neutral cities by 2030. And I'll unpack why cities, why citizens, why carbon neutral cities. So let's talk about the current state of solutions on the planet around climate. When you go and sort of step back from all the noise, all the conversations, all the conferences, you basically boil down to three solution sets that are in play as the dominant solutions: creating new technologies, creating policies, and building new markets. These are what we call top-down, supply-side oriented. And the results that we're seeing right now and getting traction demonstrate that they're struggling to scale. Certainly not in a time frame that we can feel comfortable that we will address the issue before we hit the irreversible tipping points. So this is the state of play at the moment. And all of the, shall we say, international community's focus is on these three solutions. There's another type of solution, which is called bottom-up, demand-side climate solutions around behavioral change. A lot of the work that I've done is in this space. And these set of solutions also, while effective, in both cases, all of these solutions are effective, but they struggle to scale. And scaling is the holy grail. So the question becomes, how do you bring them together? So when we combine top-down and bottom-up climate solutions, something alchemical happens. We activate what I call a whole system. And something even more profound is that the behavioral change or the individual's lifestyle choices builds demand for the policies through their advocacy, for new technologies to get onboarded into their lives and into their communities, into their businesses, and market creation. We're building new markets for whatever these new technologies and services are to create a low carbon or carbon neutral economy. So this activates the system if you can create the demand. As we know in economics, demand drives supply. You can have all the best ideas, but if no one wants them, it doesn't go very far. So this is what a whole system solution looks like. And this is a game changer if you can implement it, because it can speed up time. It can speed up magnitude of change, it can speed up quality of change. So a whole system climate solution then enables humanity to mobilize change at the speed and magnitude needed to avoid irreversible tipping points. We know we don't have more than a decade. So speed of change and magnitude of change is essential. So where to focus this? Cities generate 70% of the carbon footprint of planet Earth. That means they are the natural logical starting point. And of that footprint, 70% comes out of our lifestyle choices as individuals. So a natural starting point is cities, and a natural starting point within cities is our lifestyles and how we live, the energy that we use, how we transport ourselves, the food we eat. So enter Cool Block, this program that I've been building with a team for the last 10 years and growing out of a 40-year commitment to figuring out how to deal with behavioral change at scale. So here's where we are in the Cool Block program. The way it works is an individual, anyone listening in to this presentation, decides they want to do something around climate change and they become a block leader. Miranda is a block leader in Creston. Thank you, Miranda. That person, through a script that we've developed, reaches out to people on their block and creates a Cool Block team of 5 to 8 households. And they meet 9 times over 4.5 months, and they cover 5 topics. One thing the Cool Block program has learned is that it has to be whole system, not just whole system macro, but whole system micro. So we have to not just deal with carbon reduction, but also disaster resilience, since that's now part of the experience we're having on this planet. That are using resources around water, learning how to be in better relationship with our neighbors, and learning how to empower others. If I change and no one else does, we don't get very far. And we built a mobile web platform. So that's the program that we have built. And we have deployed it in a number of cities: Los Angeles, San Francisco, Palo Alto, and Isla Vista. And Isla Vista is part of UC Santa Barbara, or UCSB. We are focusing on California to start with, because that's the early adopter state in America and probably the most progressive place in the planet for scaling climate solutions. We've been successfully able to reduce the footprint of each household participating, and we've had probably about 400 or 500 households by now, by 25%, which is a significant number. On average, they've reduced their footprint by about 10,000 pounds. And on average, they've taken about 23 actions. And this next number is quite significant. 56% of the people on a block invited by their neighbors have joined the program. In other words, it meets their needs in such a powerful way that they are willing to invest 4.5 months of their time to go on this journey. And part of it, the secret sauce, is they want to get to know their neighbors. So the solution to climate change actually isn't environmental, it's social. It's getting people to feel connected with others and to go on a journey together. That starts to activate the bottom-up behavioral change process. One of our communities is committing to the boldest climate goal on planet Earth, which is to become carbon neutral by 2025. That's the city of Isla Vista, in partnership with the University of California, Santa Barbara. And we also now have a number of other cities that are knocking on our door to do it. And so there's a tremendous excitement to speed up by 25 years the current trajectory for carbon neutrality in most cities, if they even have that at all. So that's a significant place that we're at. And so we are now on a moonshot to see if we can speed up change by at least 30 years, 35 years in this case. So let me talk about the scaling strategy. Whoops. So we have a strategy we call the Cool City Challenge. And the goal is over 3 years to take a city and move them to get 25 to 75% of the blocks involved, on average reducing their footprint by 25% and creating disaster resilient blocks. So that's the first part of the journey. Optimize the low-hanging fruit of residential carbon footprint. But they also are the ones that are going to activate the rest of the system, as we saw. That moves to Cool California Challenge, and we're creating a $10 million carbon neutral city prize for 2030 for the first city. Now, the work we're doing in Isla Vista is really an incubator, but then this will grow much larger across California. They have to have achieved at least the Cool City status, and we're creating prizes for different size communities. We're raising $100 million to scale this across 50 cities in California. We'll be investing $1.5 million per city, plus the technical support of how to build a cool city. And then we're going to be taking the model that we'll build in California and invest across America and the planet with a $200 million Cool America Fund and a Cool Planet Fund. I could go a lot deeper, so I'm just skimming the surface here to give you a flavor. We have a whole website, coolblock.org, that you can go and learn more, and certainly a lot more when you get to the Reinventing the Planet website, the whole talk I gave on how to scale this process. This is just a taste. So anyone interested, we can certainly give you more background information. So this is human to earth. This is getting humanity to be in different relationship to the natural world, to Earth itself, around the issue that we have to get right, climate. Let me move on to the second evolutionary driver, development. And here we're focusing on women. Everyone in the development space knows you empower a woman, you empower a community. This is the organizing principle for most of the developing world. So we're empowering women in the developing world with the agency to transform the cycle of poverty into thriving lives, communities, and countries by 2030. If you look at the Gates Foundation or UNDP or any of the major UN agencies, they've always said there are two drivers. You've got to empower women and you've got to build agency. Agency is the organizing principle for development if you are going to get traction. And over the last 40 years, we have built a vehicle, a program to do that has been highly successful. These are the countries we're currently in. So you can see we're in 12 different countries around Africa, the Middle East, and India. We're in a number of cities. Currently, we are in 4 distinct regions of the world: Africa, Middle East, South, and Central Asia, which are the leverage points for being able to scale. Our goal here is to scale over the next 10 years. We have 12 countries. We're working with 35 distinct partner organizations. And they go through this 4-day experience called the Empowerment Workshop, which Johns Hopkins said is unsurpassed in all their research in creating agency. Increases the income potential of a woman by 3 times, their health potential by 10 times, their relationship potential by 15 times, which is the transformation of the violence against women, part of the whole women's empowerment space. Through direct impact, those 20,000 people have reached out to, on average, 25 people and influenced their immediate network. And those people have influenced indirectly their larger network. So we've touched 5.2 million people through the different levels of impact, the ripple effect as it's called. This is where we have gotten to over 10 years of our research to be able to get ready to scale. And I'll go into the scaling in a moment. The workshop facilitates agency, proven by deep research by Johns Hopkins University. It's adapted to various contexts and cultures wherever we go, anywhere from illiterate to or non-literate to people of any number of dialects or different kind of cultural contexts, women sold into sex slavery in India to women living in slums in Mumbai to wherever. It has had tremendous impact in all these different contexts, so it's transferable. We're able to recruit the best and the brightest NGOs around the world because we bring something to them that they currently don't have available, the ability to create agency. So they want to be with us. So we're very successful actually in getting these NGOs to disseminate this. So we don't have to do that ourselves. We're able to build their capacity to deliver the workshop through our train the trainer process. The workshop has been so effective that it helps those NGOs deliver agency in a manner that gets them more funding because they're able to produce a higher quality value proposition. We have long-term relationships, so once we make this investment, they tend to stick around so we can grow that capacity and grow our ability for them to continue to be effective vehicles for delivering this. And over the course of the last 2.5 years, we've built an NGO to NGO train the trainer program. So these NGOs are now training other NGOs. So we have a unique value proposition. We give away at no cost all of our intellectual property and all of our training capacity, and we invest financially in them. So we have a lot of demand, and the NGO to NGO train the trainer program is now growing very rapidly. We've been able to maintain, which is pretty rare at scale, high quality. And we have found that this model is now diffusing through the development world through our various ways of getting the word out about this empowerment methodology. So we are primed for scaling, which isn't to say we are scaling at the levels that we wish to yet, but that's the goal over the next decade. It's taken us 10 years to get here. So this is what's in place for scaling. We are in 12 countries, as mentioned. We have deeply invested partner organizations. We're addressing all the women's empowerment issues across the full empowerment ecosystem of women's issues. So that's health and education and income generation and violence against women, and it goes on. We have our proven NGO to NGO Train the Trainer program, and we have 125 empowerment trainers that are primed and ready to go and can be deployed anywhere, but right now they're spread out across all of these countries. So this is the pathway for scaling. Our goal by 2025 is to have from 125 to 38,000 trainers, from 35 partner organizations to 7,800. And each of them so far are making these commitments to 1,500 participants when they get this free training and capacity building. By 2030, if this kind of algorithm holds, and who knows whether it will, we hope it will, and some have said it can go even faster because there's so much demand. So unknown, but a 10-year projection at this point is fairly hard to predict. But if we stay on this trajectory, we'll have 16 million people will have been trained in agency. And here's where it gets most interesting. By 2030, there'll be 9.3 billion people on the planet. The developing world will have 7.4 billion. If every workshop participant shares their agency with 25 family members and friends who influence 10 additional people, that means 16 million workshop participants will directly impact 400 million people, who will directly impact 3.8 billion, or 51% of the developing world, well into the late majority. So that number doesn't stop there, but that just is a moment in time when that kind of number is able to be crystallized. 15% is the number for tipping. So we're well into the tipping point. And if we have that level of agency achieved with women across the developing world, furthered by the second order change knowledge that I've shared in the video, which enables us to create transformative social change, we'll be able to create deep transformation at the personal, community, and country levels. It'll be a game changer. It'll be a game changer. The way that the world looks now will look very different in 10 years. And this will also open up multitudes of the NGOs that are trying to do this work, just opening them up. So what did we say we would have? 7,800 NGOs, 2025. I didn't even remember what the number was. Let me go back and see what that number was. Yeah, we don't even have a number for partner. Oh yeah, partner organizations would be 620,000 by, so the world looks different. We're in a audacious space right now, so bear with us, and it's doable. And if you go to imagineprogram.net, you'll see this is not a pipe dream. This is in major play, and it's getting a lot of traction. Okay, so keep breathing, because there's yet a third part of this vision to come, which is peace on earth. Okay, so we've now taken on poverty, we've taken on climate, and now we're taking on peace. And the goal here is to empower humanity with the agency to create peace on earth by 2030, peace on earth by 2030, within the next decade. And we're going to do that, and are doing it, and not even are going to, we are doing it, it has begun, through this game called the Peace on Earth by 2030 game. This is what keeps Miranda so busy, and a lot of us. So the game is based on this 1986 first Earth run which we organized, in which a torch of peace went around the world in partnership with UNICEF. And wherever the torch of peace went, all war stopped and the world was united as one. It engaged 25 million people, 45 heads of state in 62 countries, and through the media, 1 billion people, 20% of the planet, watched this unfold. We took the knowledge out of that enabled it to be successful. We call those success strategies, and translated them into 7 actions that make up the game. And those 7 actions are what gets implemented by a group of 5 to 8 people, similar to Cool Blocks, so the same methodology, a peer support group. They can meet locally or virtually. They meet 8 times, either online or in person, on a platform we've built. One goal of the game is to create what we call dream keepers, those who believe peace on earth is possible and are applying the 7 peace practices in their lives and communities. These dream keepers are a very special breed of human being on planet Earth at this moment, because the wisdom keepers, some of the people that you all have had so far in this Blueprint for Humanity conference, the indigenous elders, tell us when 0.5% of humanity holds the intention that peace on earth is possible, that's 40 million people, we will shift the consciousness of the planet to enable peace on earth. But that's not enough. That's just creating the consciousness shift, which is significant. So I don't want to undervalue that. But that combined with the 7 actions, which is the behavioral, and people mastering those 7 actions, creates the mechanism to create peace on earth in a decade. Another one of the goals of the game is to create what we call peace on earth zones, or PO zones. And we have about 20 that are now in play or getting ready to start. These are communities playing the game and applying the 7 actions to what we call reweave the social fabric. We know that right now the social fabric in America and around the world is frayed or torn asunder. So we need to reweave it. The game enables us to then move it into a healed and rewoven. But this starting point is this cafe we built that starts the process. And then the game enables creative solutions through these cooperative activities that the team takes and engages the community in. We've already again begun, and we're seeing the traction that this is getting. So these are not just aspirational, they're in play. A PO zone's long-term goal is to create peace on earth in that community. 22.5 million cities and towns is the number that we have on the planet. That is our target, to get in every city and town on the planet. And when these actions are engaged with, it opens up what we call golden age frequencies. So each action operates on a physical level, but also on a, you might call, spiritual level. So they embody oneness and love, cooperation, abundance, it goes on. So that creates a golden age community. So on September 20th, not too long ago, a little over, what, a month, 2 months now, and 34 years after the Torch of Peace circumnavigated the globe, we launched this 10-year game to create peace on earth. We had 60,000 people participate from around the world, and we had 1,500 team leaders come out of that. That's how we grow the game, through these team leaders, and that's a significant number. We were hoping to get a few hundred, and we just got a tremendous response, and 20 PO zones. So we are well in play in the Peace on Earth game. So the fourth of these evolutionary drivers or levers for large-scale transformative social change is what we call our knowledge vision, or in particular our Empowerment Institute Center for Reinventing the Planet. And our goal here is to empower humanity with the second order change knowledge to reinvent the planet by 2030. So we need to build capacity of change leadership. That's the NGOs, the CBOs, the government agencies, the businesses that want to do corporate social engagement, the individuals, the block leaders, the community change agents, anyone who says, I want to make the world better, needs to know how to move from first to second order change, from incremental to transformational. And so we're going to be building their capacity. We'll be building we've already begun building our Think and Do tank, which is designed to support the plan's implementation. Every community we're in is a kind of a satellite of the Think and Do tank. And what we call a Jedi school, I know, David, you participate in a few of those classes, which is designed to empower the change makers with the knowledge, the second order change knowledge, the training, and where we see them having real potential, the financial resources to create second order change solutions. So we call this the Empowerment Institute Center for Reinventing the Planet. And the last part of the plan we call the money vision, the financial wherewithal to bring about change, which is currently not in high gear at the moment, because there is a lack of understanding how to create the needed change. There are funds that are stagnated, just waiting to get implemented or activated if we can show them how to spend it better, measure it, scale it, demonstrate the difference between first and second order change, show what behavior change at scale looks like. So we want to empower humanity with the financial resources to reinvent the planet by 2030. So we're putting $1 billion philanthropic fund together to implement the plan and finance second order change solutions. And as part of that, we want to help change the game of philanthropic funding by showing the difference between a first order change investment and a second order change investment. A first order change investment is going to create the results we have seen over the last 30 or 40 years that are not getting the traction. And a second order change investment is going to be able to change the game of change itself, in our judgment. And we're seeing it achieve that. My book, Social Change 2.0, speaks to that even in more depth. But if we're able to do that, we will free up trillions of dollars to better invest and get what we call strong social ROI, or another way to say it is help people do good better. So there's a lot of resources available when you change the game around how money is invested to get a result that it's currently not getting. So that's the picture. That's the big picture. Again, all of these are at a very basic level because of what's possible in a slide presentation like this, but there's a deeper dive that we go into in all of them for those that are interested. So as I bring closure, it was a very interesting thing to learn along the way that NASA, who did the official moonshot, the impossible becoming possible, when they got the assignment to bring a man to the moon and back alive by President Kennedy in 1960, had 20% of what they needed to achieve that moonshot. They were told to do something that was seemingly impossible, and they had what 20% of what they needed. And they went looking and discovered that the other 80%, they didn't need to have themselves. It was all out there. It was all out there. What they had to do was to discover the other 80%. And that's where I think we are with our Reinventing the Planet plan. I don't know if we have 20% or 10%, or I don't know what percent we have, but it's certainly not enough. So we are, through the plan, inviting people to participate, to bring their puzzle piece. And we're inviting people who hear this talk to reach out to us and tell us what they're bringing. We're finding ourselves now in a unique role because we've built such a powerful social architecture that we're seeing how the pieces are starting to fit together. We're calling that meta-system integration. So what pieces are you holding? How does one reinvent a planet? We don't know. All we know is that we're taking the first steps on that path. How does one achieve the audacity of goals that the SDGs have created? We don't know. All we know is we've set goals. But this path and this process that we're part of and that we're enabling with these kinds of tools and strategies and the traction we're getting and the kind of response we have from people all over the world is giving us a lot of confidence that we have something that could really make an impact. So the invitation is to join, play with us, come. We need your help. So let me close. Again and again in history, some people wake up, they have no ground in the crowd, and they move to broader, deeper laws. They carry strange customs with them and demand room for bold and audacious action. The future speaks ruthlessly through them. They change the world. So that is our grand strategy, to reinvent the planet and our desire to change the world, and are already changing the world. And we need your help. So with that, let me open up to questions that anyone may have in the chat. If there are any, Miranda's going to read them out and I'll answer them. And then I know we're going to have a larger conversation with David and Gail and Alice later on after we've received any questions that people may have at this point. So please, your questions, your comments, whatever it is that, and where you're from also, it'd be great to know who's listening. And I know this will also be rebroadcast, so there'll be lots of people that aren't here now that may hear about it in the future.
Will you stop the screen share so that it can, okay, thank you. Well, we want to open it up to David, Cam, and Gail and Alice as well to be in a discussion together. I also would love, since we're in the Indigenous conference, I know you had a very special message in the Earth Run that you did in 1986 from Grandmother Caroline, talking about the Hopi prophecy. And I just wanted you to share a little bit about that and her guiding words that are guiding us into this next 1,000 years. If you can just share that.
Really. So when we launched the first Earth Run from the grounds of the United Nations in a sunrise ceremony in 1986, September 21st, the International Year of Peace and the International Day of Peace, we invited Grandmother Caroline of the Hopi Nation to deliver the Hopi prophecy, and a man named Chief Shenandoah, Leon Shenandoah, David knows, I think his, I don't know, I guess it would be his daughter or his granddaughter or someone in his family, to light the fire. And the Iroquois Nation are the keepers of the fire, and the Hopi Nation are the keepers of the dream, and not exclusively, but those are some of the roles that they represent. And so when Grandmother Caroline offered her prophecy, she said this torch would start a great turning toward 1,000 years of peace. And however, you have to learn how to listen to the signs, because it's going to look very different than the way it seems to be. So when you see the world looking like it's contracting, maybe it's getting ready to expand or whatever. So I have become a student of listening to the signs. And I've concluded, which is why we've reactivated the Torch of Peace, that the signs are now showing us that we are ready to begin this journey of 1,000 years of peace. So we very much feel drawn to listening to the wisdom of the people who understand such things. So that's the story of how we started.
Beautiful. Thank
So
you.
if there's any questions that anyone has in the chat, feel free to ask them. And otherwise, we can jump into a larger conversation with David and Gail and Alice about anything that I've shared. And I would love that. I mean, everybody's willing to create a Blueprint for Humanity conference. definitely is
Evening,
answered.
Mr. Gershon, I'm sorry, David. We do have a question. There was a woman who wanted to know if you have this in Central America, and if you do, what part of Central America is your organization in?
That is an interesting question. We don't have anything right now formally in Central America. And we would love to bring the game to Central America. We'd love to bring all parts of this plan to Central America. So if you want to reach out to us, you can go to reinventing.earth. And there you can just send us an email message and we can be in conversation with you. But right now we don't have any parts of it. The part that we think is most ready to scale is going to be the game. And Miranda, do we actually have any, you know, I may have misspoken. We may have interest from Central America. I know we have interest from South America on the game itself.
Yeah, we definitely have interest. We've been talking to people in Costa Rica recently who have some intentional communities that do want to bring the game there and start Peace on Earth zones. And I just wanted to share that, you know, David, the plan is so big, talking about the Reinventing the Planet plan, but every piece of it is actually about engaging the average person, and especially engaging those that want to learn how to be change makers or care about social innovation or want to regenerate their communities. So that's why we created a game out of it. That's why there's empowerment programs, there's cool block programs that are made to use it with your household and at a block level to begin with, so that anybody can enter any of these programs. And then we have a lot of, you know, UN involvement and larger scale, more top-down involvement as well. But please do reach out to us and contact us. We're also open to discussing how to get your community involved and what might fit you best, whether it's with women's empowerment that's your greatest interest, or helping with climate change, or starting the Peace on Earth game and creating a Peace on Earth zone, which is kind of a combination of all of the efforts together, but starting at a community level for your Peace on Earth zone.
Yes. Also, Miranda, the young lady's name is Roxana Demas, and she said that she will reach out to you and Mr. Gershon regarding such for Central America. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Gail. And thank you, Roxana, for reaching out to us and your interest. So I don't know if there are any other questions. There might be comments. We're also welcome to that. If not, we can dive into a conversation with you, Gail, and you, David. And I don't know if Alice is going to be part of this, but we look forward to that. And Miranda, you may have comments or questions that you may wish to ask as well, to open up spaces that maybe I didn't touch in that you think would be worth getting into further.
Well, I just welcome the discussion from Gail and David. Both of you hold such big, beautiful worlds and blueprints that you're working with as well on creating global change. And we're very much looking forward to working with both of you over the next year. Blueprinting, focusing on these kind of issues takes a lot of time and work, and both of you have put most of your life into that as well, like we have. So however you want to lead this discussion, and maybe people might just be tuning in for this part of it as kind of a synopsis of looking back at what's happened over the last, how long has it been? 10 days, 11 days of broadcasting? So if you want to each just give a little, just where you see there might be potential collaboration for us and your groups, and give the audience just a bit of how they might be able to see that and get involved with us in the future on a greater level too, and what you have to add.
Right, I want to add one more piece to that, is inviting in Gail and David. I know you guys are working on what I've been told by David is an 18th SDG, an integration SDG, which is very attractive to us and we feel is needed, since we see the world through a whole system perspective. So also happy to discuss how what we're doing or what that might look like and where this might be synergy as well. So anyway, thoughts and questions or comments?
David?
Yes, looking at this, since this conference is looking at viewpoints from indigenous perspective, there's two major things that are in sort of historical things that are part of the obstacles that are preventing indigenous nations from moving forward. Number one is the doctrine of discovery. I don't know if you know what it is, the Papa Bowls. It is. Is there any plan within your Reinventing the Planet in regards to the doctrine of discovery? That's the first question.
And David, why don't you define the doctrine of discovery? I mean, I have heard the term, I'm familiar with it in general, but if you could precisely define it, then I could speak to it.
Okay, the doctrine of discovery was actually started in the 1500s, where the Pope issued what they call papal bulls, and there was a series of papal bulls that actually colonized the Americas, North America, South America, Canada, Africa, Asia, like that. It says that the Pope wish that if you're not Christian, that you can rape, pillage, murder, um, take away their land, steal, enslave indigenous, basically they say indigenous people, non-Christians from all over the world. And that papal bull is still actually law in the United States, actually. It has never been rescinded. And as far back as the 1970s, the court invoked the doctrine of discovery. In the U.S., they call it manifest destiny. There's a doctrine of discovery itself. How can we have peace when there's a war declaration on the indigenous people that's still there, and that gives the right. Even Canada, they invoked it, that the colonial powers have the right over the indigenous peoples, including everything, including their lives over that. So,
well, thanks for the softball question, David. Let me digest that one here a little bit. So there's a philosophical worldview that we come from, and that is change doesn't come from the top, it comes from the bottom. And to expect systems that have been built on worldviews like you've just articulated, that are still getting a lot of credence in other forms, not even just that one, but along any number of ways that people are being disenfranchised across the world, not just in America or Canada, is not where change is going to happen. We learned during the first Earth run that we were able to build such a movement that we were able to have different conversations with leaders because they were seeing something happening that was creating a new impetus. So it's the difference between first and second order change. It's pretty fundamental. So if you start getting communities to love thy neighbor, if you start getting communities to start experiencing the sense of oneness and experiencing the wherewithal to recognize that we are one human family, the conversation starts to change. The behaviors start to change. The consciousness starts to change. So I would look into the how of a bottom-up process like that and less into trying to transform the 1.0 system, which is going to break on the weight of its own dysfunctionality over time. Already we're seeing that. That's not the complete solution to what you're describing, but it's a big significant piece. And we're doing a lot of work similarly around another issue like Black Lives Matter, where it seems like the systemic transformation is unable to get traction at the scale that people are at the top down level. But if you bring it from the bottom, things can happen in ways that at least I've seen, that haven't looked possible from another angle. So that would be my way in to that conversation. It's a bigger conversation, but it's a way in.
Anybody else have other comments about that? I have another question.
Feel free, and Miranda, if you wanted to comment further, were you about to say something?
Well, just that I've seen this literally in action work in a lot of the ways that David is talking about, because I've taken these programs into my community and used them. Our Peace on Earth team right now, it has half, about half white players and half Native American, African American, and we're joining in the conversation of how do we really get the rest of what is causing fracturing and separation out of our lives and build something new. And one of the newest parts of the Peace on Earth game is a workshop that we're about to start doing called the Reweaving the Social Fabric Cafe. And it's a 4-hour program that anyone can do inside their community. And it addresses things just like this of let's bring it out in the open. What is fracturing our societies, especially this year? We've gone through the virus. We've gone through protests that are majorly about racial justice. Everybody's dealing with climate change issues and looking at our Earth needing us to help her quickly and come in harmony and stop doing things that are detrimental to our planet. We have the election we just went through, are still going through the ripples of all of these things. And this is made to give us an experience of what it looks like to break down those barriers, break down all of that, the old things that might have been put in place for one person to control another or to cause separation or to make there even be an other, an instead of a us and them. Help us all to find our unified vision that we can gather around. So I've seen this beautiful process in action, and I think that's one of the only places we can go with it. I mean, changing the law, if it still exists, which most of the average public, I think, doesn't even know about that. And definitely figuring out where that might still be causing harm is a big thing many people should be looking at if that is still there. But the real answer, I think, lies within every single one of us trying our best to make sure that that is not a reality that exists or that any of us want anymore as we build a new world.
Yes, because
sorry, I just wanted to say something to what Miranda said. You know, I often hear and people use Black Lives Matter, and I've had people of color get mad at me. Um, all lives matter, but when one life doesn't matter, then all lives don't matter. Okay? So whether Jewish lives matter, Chinese lives matter, indigenous lives matter, all lives matter. The point of Black Lives Matter is that their lives never mattered. Okay? The point of Jewish lives, Holocaust, their lives didn't really matter. Okay? And at one point, when we crossed the threshold, if you remember when we came into New York and people passed through the Statue of Liberty, at one point, Irish lives didn't matter. At one point, Italian lives didn't matter. There's always been an inner fight with humanity amongst culture, amongst ethnicity. I agree with you, David. I agree with David K. I'm sorry, David Cam. I agree with Mr. Gershon, and I agree with Miranda. But at the end of the day, I think what Miranda said is very telling and very important. It really does come down to each one of us owning, even if it's learned behavior, learning what we have seen from the home. The home itself goes back to what David Gershon was saying, looking at yourself. And whether you're when you're a child, you don't know better. But as you get older, you learn. and looking at what you've learned, the entity within yourself, it starts with you. And when you shift the perspective that you have and the attitude you have, then it allows all of us to actually become a collective and collaborative force with one another. But it has to start with us. The actions that we take every day, how we choose to perceive something, our insecurities, because also racism, human rights come out of insecurity. When we talk about the indigenous communities, we always say we're going to give them a voice. No, we don't give them a voice. They already had a voice. They have a voice like each one of us do. An Irish person, an Italian person, we like to also identify ourselves by our culture. No, we happen to be human beings who are in geographical spaces and places, and we have the opportunity to share our culture with each other. But the indigenous are not given a voice. They had the voice. In fact, the voice they speak into the earth is really the whole point, and why David Kay has come together to have his vision realized. But I have to agree, it's like an agreement with all three of you. But I love what I'll stop at what Miranda said. It starts within each one of us. And if we don't take the time to look at our own inner prejudices, we don't just have prejudices with color or culture, we have prejudices with classism, economics. There are people who won't even engage with each other because, oh, I don't like the way he or she or LGBTQIA acts or looks. You know, we have all kinds of inner prejudices, and if we don't confront our own inner prejudice, I mean, literally take the time to sit down and look at what you really think. And that's what COVID has offered us, an opportunity to sit down and think and look. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Gail. And I think, yes, there's a lot of alignment here. David, did you have another question?
Yes, often the times when I look at a lot of organizations promoting unity, peace, and so on, are often led by mainly white Caucasian men, or most of these organizations. Do you accept to have actually those organizations to have like non-white men as leaders instead of just followers, in the sense that basically a lot of the times I see it's often just the same thing, people promoting unity or peace or climate change. They're all like white, or I mean, it's not like we rarely see. And when the fact that there was God bless Greta Thunberg, is that the media were focused on just the white little girl there, while the excluding indigenous or black, they wouldn't have as much voice or visibility. And that leads to the concept of leadership, because the reason the black or colored people are not in those organizations leaders, because the white people probably won't follow them. That's the reason why. So that can sound okay. There's a white organization leader because then the black or the colored will follow. That's what the people are thinking. Same thing for movies. When they make a movie, a character, they just put the white male as a hero because people watch it and accept it. If you put somebody else, they say, "Oh my God, we're gonna lose money." So how do you change with that, or do we always have to follow the narrative, the white race should lead us?
Well, David, again, thank you for your very direct and demanding question, I would add. A good question, so thank you. So, I'm not operating as an American. I'm operating as a global change agent. And in 14 of our countries, it's not led by a white male. It's led by a Black woman or a Middle Eastern woman or whatever. So that is a characterization that I think maybe relates to America, but not necessarily the rest of the parts of the world where we're doing work. That said, let me speak to the American context. My larger work is around empowerment. So I'm always anxious to grow and support anyone who's going to show up in leadership. And if, to Gail's point, if someone hasn't shown up, it's a little bit like everyone has a voice. And if someone doesn't show up, then it's really more on them that they haven't shown up than anything else. And the invitation is to support them to show up and do their best to represent their vision, not unlike you, who is showing up and creating a conference. I don't think people were not following it or following it by virtue of your ethnicity. I think it's the virtue of their ideas. I think that is part of our history. I don't think it's where the action is going into the next decade. I think that's too small for us to make it as culture. So more power to anyone who wants to show up. And again, you know, there's a lot of movements that are not about white male leadership, albeit white male leadership has been a dominant archetype because the white male patriarchy has been a dominant archetype. So I am a representative, you could say, of the benefits that one gets. But I would say a lot of the people you're describing, David, by virtue of their color of their skin, aren't necessarily demonstrating the quality that is required to follow anybody. It really depends on what someone brings to the table. More often than not, the peace and unity movements are not producing the results that are needed. So it's immaterial what color someone's skin is if they don't either black, white, yellow, red, brown, unless they produce a result. So that to me is the metric that I use. What kind of change have they brought about? How passionate, how committed are they to bring it about? And if they bring it about, people will follow them. That's my point of view. I don't think we have to worry about the prejudice at that level. That's my point of view. They may not say that's for everybody, but I think that's certainly how I hold it.
I have to say something here. And, it's a very interesting thing that this question would be asked. Often, with all due respect, this question is asked when a person of color or a person who's indigenous is present. And it's a very awkward and very sometimes uncomfortable spot. I just asked my colleague here, should I say something? So I'm going to say this as a human being. I like what David Gershon said, as a human being who happens to be a person of color. I'm in transformational work, and transformational work has no color. It's a human being, as I said, who happens to be in geographical spaces and places. But I do want to say something about whether we can create a result. You can't create a result if you don't know what you have access to. There are communities that are underserved, regardless of whether they're white, black, indigenous, Asian, Haitian, doesn't matter what it is, that they're underserved. They may live in different parts of the states or different parts of the world where they're underserved and they don't have access to even know what kind of results they can create because they've been living in an environment that that has an impetus to just survival. So if you're living in the town of Celaya, as an example, in Mexico, but you're over in Mexico's Ciudad, okay, you have a Jewish community within the Mexican, which I teach their students, that have access to everything. But then you have another group of students that don't have that same access that the students that we teach of the Tarbut school are supporting the other students. So those students now can create those results because they've learned from the students at the Tarbut school that there are results that they can create. But you cannot, David Gershon, David Cam, or Miranda, always create a result if you don't know that there's an access to a type of result that can be created to bring your community and transform your community. Is that what you don't know that you don't know that you don't know? But that's that blind spot. But if you're given access, it's like that child that reads a piece of paper and she's doing her homework up and down, but then, like, let's say Miranda, I believe Miranda has children, and Miranda comes over to her daughter or her son and says, honey, didn't you see that? The answer was right there, but she looked all over the piece of paper and didn't see that she could create the result. And then as a mom who is just a little more, has wisdom, a little more because of her age or whatever, or her experience, can come over and say, honey, the answer is right there. You've already had it. So sometimes we don't even know that we have the answer to something. But I think we have to stop talking about it in the level of color. We have to get real. Yes, the racism exists, the human rights violations exist, and you know what? At the UN and everyone else, we talk about that all over the place. Let the United Nations handle that, okay? Matter of fact, we should stop using the United Nations as a backdrop and look at the work that David Gershon, David Cam, Miranda Clendenning do outside of that. Because that work on itself holds such a powerful punch. The United States nations does the best that they can with what they have, but they're at the government level. The David Gershons, the David Cams, the Miranda Condennings, the Gail Davises, their work holds on its own foundation. And that's the place we need to look and start from. David Cam, in reference to your question, I love you to death, and you know this. And it's not a prerequisite for me to say something bad or anything. But African Americans, African, all communities, I'll give you an idea. When you're in the UK, the people from Scotland and the people from Ireland and the people from England have an actual sarcastic attitude with each other from colonialism, from the fights that they've had in the past, and everything. And so they have like this love, sarcastic relationship with each other. The people who are African American, Caribbean, and African have this love hate sometimes with each other, okay? The people of Saudi Arabia and Jordan and the rest of the Muslim community sometimes have that too, and then the inter communities. So within in the indigenous community, sometimes it's the Maori and the Aborigines and whatever. I'm speaking fact. I'm speaking experience. I'm speaking relationships that I've been on the ground with. And these are the things that we don't want to talk about, the interrelationships that we have to look at and heal from the inside out. And we also have to remember that indigenous, Jewish, African American, Hispanic have had the worst of it. There was a time, China's at the top now, but there was a time when China and the African American were working side by side building a railroad together. So then I go back to what David Gershon said, which is when you have access to something that you know you have access to, then you can create the results. But if you have if you don't know that you have access to something, or there's something out there to create that result, then it's hard to do. So I think we all have the answer here. I think each one of us has the answer. And I'm not just saying that so that we all get along like kumbaya, but we all have a piece of the puzzle here that brings the answer together. The answer is you. And when I say you, the answer goes back to what Miranda said. The answer is you. And when you change your perception, when you change who you are, David, you are the answer. You're sitting here creating COM 26V. You are the answer. Miranda brought David Gershon here. She is the answer. David Gershon has done this huge, amazing body of work. He is the answer. Gail Davis is doing the work that I'm doing with youth and otherwise. I am the answer. So as we continue to do this and not talk about it, but actually speak on the solutions, as David Gershon's actual presentation showed. He didn't come here and say, could you do this? Maybe would you do this or that? He actually brought the answers. So that's what we need. And every answer will not be one size fits all. So the woman that looked at the Central America thing, that's what she did. She saw something in David's presentation and she did it. David, the people that are listening here, they see something in what you're creating. So David Cam, they're here. David, you're the answer. You're bringing the answers here. I think that's where we need to start, to see ourselves as the answer, be responsible, and let go of the ego. Simple as that. Back to what Miranda said. I close my case.
Kelly, you're amazing. So thank you for making such a beautiful case.
I totally agree with that. Just to one more thing is that we do appreciate the work of the 40 years you've been putting into reinventing the planet. I see solutions there that are major solutions to our planet. It's not the only solutions, but these are major solutions that you're putting forward. And it is true. Miranda Clendenning's answer, David Gershon's answer, Gail Davis and other people who have provided in this conference, who's trying to providing their blueprints. They are the answer also, because the question is, are we the answer or not? The question is, are we going to work together, or are we going to stay in silos to implement these solutions? Some people will say, okay, I'll just do it myself. Some people say, I want to work together. We are inviting those who want to work with us. That's all, that's very simple. We're not saying we're not supporting the people who want to work alone and do their. We're inviting everyone in to a neutral platform that can do it. Indigenous people as a part of the solution.
Let me speak to a context, two contexts, really. The operative word for the empowerment of women in our Imagine work is agency, which is the term of art that was coined really as a strategy by the World Bank and UNDP and a few of the other agencies a number of years ago, and then picked up on by the Gates Foundation. And we didn't realize that we had an answer. We discovered after the fact, when we were approached by these different groups that were looking for how do you actually deliver agency, that we actually had that. The questions that Gail was speaking to, of like, what if I don't know what I don't know, and what if I feel like I'm just stuck in this situation, I don't know what to do about it. Well, that's the norm of the people we work with all around the world in that part of our work. And it's the same in climate. I live in a affluent community, let's say, like one of our cities, like Palo Alto. It says, hey, Palo Alto. But I have no idea I can have any impact on climate. Or I am, living in a polarized community around race or politics, and I don't think I have any possibility to change that. I just feel disempowered, disenfranchised. There's lots of different types of disenfranchisement. Whenever someone feels a victim and they don't have power, then they are now stuck. They're no longer adding value. But once they get agency, once they see a vision of what's possible and they have the tools to enable it, my definition of empowerment, then all things are possible. And then the criterion of quote unquote result is, have you been able, when you have the knowledge and the skills, have you acted on it? And if you have, then you're now part of the solution. And our job is to grow agency. Everything, if you were to boil it down to one single word in the Reinventing the Planet plan, is building capacity around agency, around important issues. And if those issues are not the highest leverage issues, but just issues that an individual or a community wants to engage in, you have to build agency around that too. So that to me is the ultimate, shall we say, lever for how we change things, which is what will enable someone to take effective action to exercise their agency in their lives, firstly, for their personal empowerment, to create the life they want in their community and beyond. So you, Gail, you, David, are exemplars of people with agency. You had an idea, a vision, you've put it together, you've partnered, you've brought all these groups together. I love, that David was willing to, not love maybe, but because it was uncomfortable, but I appreciated that you're willing to ask hard questions about race. Let's put them all on the table. Let's address them. Let's go towards them. Otherwise, we don't get to talk about these things that are challenging and often not said. So I'm grateful for that. I had someone in my class the other day that's helping create a pose zone that, had a very different ideological worldview than I did. And I welcomed it because that's what's required. So yes, we have to ask those questions. Yes, we have to feel the sense that there's a need for all different kinds of contributions, and race is only really truly I know in this country it's a big deal, but most of the work that I do in other places, it's not the organizing principle. I mean, there are other things might be, like ethnicity or religion. So there are always the things that separate us, but those aren't the things that I have found showing up in our world, the world that we're creating, which is a 2.0 world. In the 2.0 world, it's your quality of your vision, the quality of your agency, quality of your ideas, quality of your follow through. If you have those things, then you're a hero in my world. And our job and our Center for Reinventing Planet is to support those people, those ideas.
I'm so sorry. We have another group of people, Mr. Gershon. I'm so sorry. They have been waiting for quite a while, and we could probably go on forever. I think David Gershon and Miranda Clendenning, we're going to have you come back. We're just going to have you come back. This conversation cannot just end here, David Gershon and Miranda Clendenning. But we do have to bring on another group because they're calling in from another country 12 hours ahead.
Gail, a pleasure. Our pleasure to offer space. We are happy to be here. At least I can speak for myself. I know Miranda can speak for herself, which I'll invite her in a moment. But thank you for the offering to be here. David, thank you for this beautiful work. Gail, for this amazing capacity you have to create an 11-day conference like this. God bless you.
Well, David, I would love to go through your library because I love books. And Miranda, thank you for coming on, everyone. David Cam, as always, you bring it. So David